outfit?
Oh, we got both kinds. We got country and western.
Are you the police?
No, ma'am. We're musicians.
Top news stories. Time to find out once again with Megan Olson and News of the Week on The Al Travis Show.
Keep your head in the game, Al. We've got our Megan with Megan's News and Review. How are you doing today?
Good. Happy to be back. Happy election day. It's not a presidential election year, but there's still elections today, folks. So get to the polls.
It's so interesting. Obviously, what's going on in New York with Mamdani, but also here in Minneapolis. And folks, driving around outstate, listening to the Al Travis Show, think, Minneapolis isn't my problem. They can figure this thing out. But you think about how Minneapolis goes. That's how Minnesota goes. I mean, it's the engine, it's that whole thing. Your thoughts on just the election going on in Minneapolis today?
I think it's going to be a really consequential one. I mean, we have a DSA endorsed candidate, Democrat Socialist candidate, versus kind of an incumbent who's been there for a while, has vetoed a lot of what the more progressive council has put forth. Between not only the mayoral race, but also all the Minneapolis wards. I think it's kind of going to lay the framework of what we can expect from, outstate Minnesota too. And even folks that are listening in greater Minnesota, you also have elections. There are two special Senate elections today, and then a lot of school districts also have either elections for candidates or levy or referendum requests as well.
Let's do your prognostication. You don't do this a lot, but the Senator Mitchell seat is up. That's the young lady who, got found guilty of burglarizing her mother-in-law's home. That is up in Woodbury. That, as much as the Republicans like to say, it's a purple seat, I don't know if it is. Is that stay with the red or the blue? Where are you going?
I think it stays blue. You have a representative who is kind of, already has that name recognition, who's running out there. If she wins, Al, another special election. I feel like we've had so many this year. It's going to happen again, just one more time.
What Megan's talking about is, so if this woman, she's a representative now, Yeager, if she ends up winning, great. The Senate's like, great, we kept it. But that means there's one less representative on the Democratic side.
Tied.
And that's tied. So now the money is going to go into how do we get this thing to switch if you're a Republican. That's going to be the next, what you call it, a special election. We're talking November 4th. Find out. If it's not too close, we know right away. You got 6 weeks.
Into session. I mean,
well, you're getting to January, February. You are. So anyway, that's going to be, we'll talk more about that. But your thoughts, I was hearing that there wasn't a lot of Republican push on that seat, as much as you'd think if the idea that you can make it. I think the Republicans are saying, you know what? We're not going to lose anything if it stays that color. Let's save our ammo. Let's go for the House seat. Might be their brilliant play. I don't know. No one talks to me about this stuff. That's what I'm looking at. So I agree with you. I think that stays on the blue side. But now you're thinking, what goes on? Well, the other seat is Senator Bruce Anderson. He passed at 74, 75 years old. That's a pretty darn red seat right there, right? I mean, that's not going anywhere.
State, like outer tier suburbs, exurbs, Monticello, Delano. That's a strong Republican hold there.
So all that being said, we have these elections as far as Senate goes. That should be a wash. That's what you and I are predicting on the Megan's News and Review program, right? We're going to wash out on that. But that makes the 6 or 7 special elections. And
they're expensive. And who pays for them? The state, which is the taxpayers.
Yeah, it's all part of the deal. I mean, we've had a couple that were self-inflicted harms. I mean, two people getting arrested, that sort of thing. But that all being said, I think you're going to watch a special election get somewhere in early January, mid-January, that will literally decide how this session goes before we get to an election in November. We're not done, you and I, talking.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even kind of what's up in the air of how session is going to go is the fact that the Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth, has decided to toss her hat into the ring for running for governor. But she's still going to maintain her status as being the speaker. It was part of the power sharing agreements that she worked on with Hortman. She doesn't really want to go back to the drawing board and have to deal with those negotiations again if a new speaker comes in. So that's kind of a tricky dynamic too, because she's, a top leader in her party and in the House, working with the man who's the governor who she's running against. And then
Oh.
also in her caucus, she has another representative who is also running for governor. So these weird, tricky dynamics, I think we'll see them get in the way come legislative session next year.
Can I say shame on, and I want to say it's a paper, it may not have been, but wherever I read it. They wrote this article, Dameth gets in, and then it was the next paragraph, how hard this would be for her. You know, she's got a full-time speaker job, which isn't easy right now with the dynamics, and she wants to run for governor. Kind of ingenuously, what is she thinking? Does she know how hard this is? They didn't write the same thing when the governor, who's got to be governor of the flipping state, was also running for VP. Yeah, and they don't say, "Oh, how hard it'll be for him to do this thing."
He's
now
running
it's like,
for
oh,
his third term.
so I thought that was a little unfair, and it's the same thing I give it with Kristen Robbins, right? She is running what I think is the most consequential committee, the fraud committee, right? She's in, and we talk about is flipping fraud on this program. She's running that thing, and at the same time running for governor. The only one they seem to write that little thing. Does Miss Dameth know how hard? Yes, she knows how hard it's going to be. Shush up. I presume she'll put some more people in charge of different committees so she doesn't have to take all of it.
Yeah. This was a well thought out rollout of her campaign. She already had all her ducks in a row prior to announcing, I don't know when it was over the weekend. But as part of your duty as the leader of, your caucus in the House, you have the HRCC, which is the kind of campaign election arm of the House Republican caucus. She already passed those duties on to Representative Harry Niska, who's just one below her. She made it very clear that she's staying out of that unless he explicitly asks for her help. So she has definitely gone, above and beyond to try and make sure everything is kosher. Things don't look like she's, campaigning and meddling, but also, in her official elected duties, you want to keep those very separate. I think she did a really good job of kind of teeing all that up.
So you see the same thing I did when you read that article, like, this is something weird. Do you believe Minnesotans can tell the difference? The Star Trib today did have a commentary from one of their people about Dameth's jump into the race. And what I thought was interesting, the person writing for Star was just flabbergasted, just could not believe that she invoked Donald Trump and Walz and their battle in her ad getting in. Good God, why not? The rest of the world saw what happened when he ran in for VP. You're going to just leave that meat on the table and say, well, we won't bring that up. That'd be untawdry.
And I think the reality is since Walz elevated himself to this national platform of running as, VP, he's really kind of over-concerned himself with a lot of what's happening in the Trump administration and with Donald Trump himself, and has kind of brought those issues back home here to Minnesota. And to some degree, yes, like federal policies, legislative proposals, those all kind of affect us in the states. They trickle down. But to make that like the landmark piece of, your governorship, like just, she is trying to paint this picture that she's for the average Minnesotan. She's going to, be for all of us here in Minnesota and not be so overly concerned and time consumed with what's happening in the White House. She's going to try and get things done here. And I think that was an important distinction for her to kind of paint.
This is not an endorsement of any of them that are in, but we're talking about this. I guess, let's say 6 months ago. You get Kendall Qualls. He's been there, kind of done that. You've got the Senator, Dr. Jensen, been there, done that. And I was yelling at the State Fair time, we need more in. The Republicans need to get a class field together to pick somebody who's going to do this, right? Then Kristen Robbins gets in, and I think she literally jumps to the forefront because of being, in the suburbs, a woman, and she's on the fraud committee. I'm like, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Now Dameth gets in. I don't know how many others are getting in. I hope there are others that are thinking that this could be my way. But I am liking the rounded field. Is that okay to say? The well-roundedness of what the Republicans put out there. Because now they're going to go back and forth. They're going to fight. Metal sharpens metal. I think this is exactly what the Republican Party needed. I don't know who else is out there, and I'm not saying don't get in.
But I think we're on a dangerous path where you have some candidates who are kind of putting a stake in the ground of, I'm going to a primary no matter what. And I think that's where things get a little bit complicated. As much as I don't like the BPOU and endorsement process, like the amount of runway that gives versus taking it to a primary, I think is really important, especially when you're talking about the Republicans not having won this office in the past 20 years.
And on that line, again, the runway, when you go to primaries, you're now shrinking down that amount of time that you guys are spending, going after the other guy, and you're just fighting amongst yourselves to get to that point. It is a disservice lots of times to make that happen. Will be interesting to see, again, who else gets in. I've asked, and some people have hinted they don't think we're done getting candidates in. I think this blocks a lot of people in the field. As far as I don't know that we'll have any other House people. I'm not saying they can't.
At this point, it's kind of like a race for, well, who's going to be the lieutenant governor? And if you throw your hat in, you kind of rise to the top of that list and open the door to those conversations.
Megan, you're always inside baseball. I love that. We got to go to break. We'll be back with more right after this with Megan's News and Review.
Hey, Brian, what do you call a lobbyist with a sense of humor?
Me?
Close. Momentum advocacy.
We help clients get real results at the Capitol with strategy, relationships, and just enough charm to make it fun.
From policy wins to media spots, we've got your back.
Nonprofits, businesses, coalitions, we've helped them all.
And we do it with nearly 90 years of combined experience.
Momentum advocacy.
As always, your friends at the Capitol. Learn more about our team at momentum-advocacy.com.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Panic, but all the Effenheimers are now out of the program.
I was going to ask what word it was.
The big granddaddy. We got to fix.
The one you don't say.
A as in alligator. L also in alligator. But it's not alligator. It's the Al Travis Show.
We've got Megan in with Megan's News and Review. We haven't talked, but this to me was the biggest story all week long, only because it drives me nuts. Maybe it isn't, with Election Day, it's not the biggest story, but you catch Walz closing down 14 more Medicaid programs for at least 90 days. We kind of think there's some fraud in there.
Yeah. Essentially what he's doing is he's auditing them. So he's outsourcing some of these audits. And here's what I think is most interesting about these audits that are going to be happening. It's that they're going to be run, one in particular is going to be run by Optum, which is a part of United Health Group, which has come under fire for their own kind of issues of fraud. Big healthcare conglomerate. I'm not so confident in that the capabilities of Optum in creating that audit, but we have the autism treatment program as part of Medicaid that's on that list of 14. The now defunct Housing Stabilization Services program as well. Really interesting move by him. I think he knows fraud is forefront of people's mind, and it's going to be a key issue next year.
This is playing us for stupid. This is what drives me nuts. So he's with Tom Hauser a week, 10 days ago, And he's like, Tom goes, hey, you going to get any more of this? He's like, well, probably some. These guys are like playing, shucky darns. These guys are pretty smart. And he's already set, don't tell me he didn't set this up, 14 of them closing down. He knew that was going to happen. You bring up the housing and stabilization thing, and one of these are going to close down. Department of Human Services comes out and says, well, we're going to go through this. We're going to revamp it. We'll get her back with better controls. Why do we need this program? Why was it just we have to throw that money out? This is crazyville time. And the idea about who's checking it, I don't throw this out to you, Megan. Don't we have an Office of Legislative Auditors? Oh, I think we do. Don't we have an Inspector General for Human Services? Well, I think we do. I think we have committee chairs on all of those different committees. Mm-hmm. We have an Attorney General. What? Lots of people.
We know, Al. I mean, you name all of these, departments and organizations and the heads of whatever. They don't communicate. We know at this point that the interagency communication is slim to none. And what one person sees over here isn't being relayed to the next to actually prosecute or do anything with. And that is the crux of the issue, is the lack of communication.
You make me so mad. So I have to pay $2.3 million to Optum, which might have their own issues and what's going on, even if they are stellar. I got to pay $2.3 million to have somebody else take a gander and not be, and I'm putting the right on the governor, be in charge. Get them talking to each other and get this fixed. This isn't we need outside help.
This is what happens when government gets so big and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, is things fall through the cracks, and it's easier to not communicate.
It's easier
because
it's
there's
easier
so
because
much happening.
It's my money. It's easier. That's why. And you just smile and you're driving me nuts.
Well, and I'm probably going to drive you even more nuts because there was one more fraud story that kind of slipped through the cracks this week as far as not getting the attention I thought maybe it deserves. KSTP has been doing a lot of really great investigative reporting, and they came out with a report that said DHS kept sending state money to a Minnesota nonprofit after their board chair was charged with fraud. So they were getting, I think, upwards of $600,000 in public money. This was a nonprofit that was meant to work with Somali children. It still exists. They kind of rebranded a little bit in recent years, which is also interesting. But yeah, another case of fraud that isn't being amplified, I think, in the way it should. Fraud, Minnesota Word of the Year, I think.
Oh, well, that and 6'7", whatever that means. Yeah, that's how hip. No, we talked about that on the show. You have just got to get to a point when the guy that founded the company, the CEO, literally gets put up for fraud, but we don't stop sending checks. It's so important for us to throw this money at the problem. Whether we think it's getting there or not, doesn't matter. This is the kind of stuff that I don't know if we as Minnesotans want to take the time to figure out when it comes to who we're going to elect next year. I don't know. This is the number one issue. This and education, with every numbers going down. We just talked about that with numbers are going down for reading and math, but graduation rates are up.
And yeah, well,
somebody explain that to me.
Smarter, I'll tell you that.
Someone tell me how that works. Anyway, we are out of time. I love having you on the program. I thank you for doing this with me every week. I appreciate you, Megan.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll talk a little bit of election recap. Remember to get out and go to the polls today, even if it's just local school board election. It's all important. And we'll be back next week to talk about the top Minnesota news stories of the week on the Al Travis Show with Megan's News and Review.
Braver Angels Minnesota